Beautiful Wednesday morning it is, all the way from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. This is Spectrum Television and this is Rise and Shine. My name is Uyai Aneke. I am thankful to be alive and to be in your face this morning.
And I am Francis Oyimaide. Glad to have you join us. It's always a beautiful moment to be here. And of course, it's Wednesday, and gradually I'll always a bit excited about the fact that the month of July is almost coming to an end. And I can't wait for the August visitation that's going to come. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited. And I know that, the remaining days in the month of July houses a lot of blessings. And of course, August is going to come with a bumper harvest.
Gonna come with a bang. Well, we do hope that your July has been going well. We hope that you have been able to surmount most of those, not so good experiences and stayed joyful in the midst of all of it. We also hope that you are smashing your goals. You know that this is already the second half of the year. If there are things you wanted to achieve, now is a good time to do so. Of course, today is a good day to rise and shine on that particular goal and that particular vision that you had. Of course, if you start now, you can still achieve a great deal before December comes. The months are already turning. But of course, this is Rise and Shine and this is Spectrum Television. Are you already following us across all the social media platforms? Have you followed us? Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel and turned on that notification bell for every time that we come on live? For instance, if you need to get on the go this morning, Rise and Shine is live on YouTube and on Facebook. Also subscribe to our Twitter social media page at Spectrum T Online. Let's get the conversation going. Let's get the energy. Let's feel your pulse on the issues of national importance. Of course, this morning on Rise and Shine, let's talk Nigeria.
Of course, let's talk Nigeria. Flash news today, we're starting with the embattled CBN governor talking about Godwin Emefiele. And of course, Nigerians are yet to be over with the drama that, happened yesterday. The court, shortly after the case was, heard, and then it was time for Emefiele to go back. There was a tussle between two arms of the federal government agency, talking about the DSS and, of course, the personnel of the Nigerian Correctional Facility over who should actually have custody of Godwin Emefiele. And it was a bit of a puzzle and a drama and a humorous experience for most Nigerians. And of course, a lot of reactions have trailed these. I recall the federal government is trying or going against Godwin Emefiele, for alleged possessions of arms or illegal possession of firearms. And of course, Emefiele has pleaded that he is not guilty of the charges leveled against him. And just yesterday, I read a comment from one of the very vocal human rights lawyer that we have coming from Akwa Ibom State, Barrister Inibege Ifeong. As far as the case between the embattled CBN governor Godwin Emefiele and the DSS is concerned. And his standpoint is that Asari Dakubo has been let go by the DSS and other security agencies in Nigeria, while Godwin Emefiele is being tried in the courtroom for very crude firearm that doesn't or shouldn't pass for any harm to anybody. Those are his standpoint as a lawyer and human rights activist, and of course he's calling, if there is anybody who should be probed, if there is anybody who should be standing trial for possession of arms, it should be the likes of Asari Dakubo. But while is the federal government going after the CBN governor, the embattled CBN governor, or the resigned CBN governor, or suspended rather, Godwin Emefiele, as against the likes of Asari Dakubo, people of his category who have brandished very sophisticated weapons over the course of time without being called to questions, without being sanctioned, without being tried or arrested for any of the crimes or such alleged crimes. And these are the concerns Nigerians are asking. But then, another question here, why do we have two federal government agencies fighting over custody? Is it that these agencies do not know their responsibility, they do not know the policy guides to what they should do and how they should go about it? And this is like a regular thing. Recall we saw the DSS and the EFCC in Lagos State fighting over office space, and now we're seeing the DSS and the correctional facility, the personnel of the Nigerian Correctional Facility fighting over custody of Emefiele.
This is really troubling on so many counts because, first of all, when the CBN governor was suspended and then taken into DSS custody, you know, most of the arising concerns was the fact that, okay, is he going to be tried on the levels of things that he did when he was CBN governor? Is it being tried for policies? Are we looking at money laundering? What exactly is, you know, Godwin Emefiele taken into DSS custody for? Yes, a lot of Nigerians, you know, came into lots of losses and hardship because of some of the policies that he heralded as the CBN governor. Let us also not forget that as the CBN governor, he did not on his own take, you know, decisions on some of those policies. It had to pass through due process. The president had to give accent to it, and then it looks more like, you know, Godwin Emefiele was put out to dry on his own. But then a couple more weeks into his being held at the DSS custody, the narrative has changed from what, you know, the speculated reasons for his arrest were. And now we are seeing that he's being arraigned. He was being arraigned before a Lagos High Court for possessing of short gun ammunition. And then we're like, from where to where did this, you know, case erupt from? Where did they move from, you know, CBN governor versus money issues and policies in the Central Bank of Nigeria to, you know, an ammunition issue? But of course, yesterday we saw, you know, a court judge now, Owebo, saying that he's granting Godwin Emefiele bail, and also that the federal government did not, you know, give credible evidence to be able to have anything against him on that particular count, therefore gave him a 20 million naira bail. Now, even on the premise of the 20 million naira bail, there's still a lot more concerns with regards to that, because Nigerians are saying, okay, in spite of everything that this man must have done, now allegations, you know, so to speak, with regards to money issues, how come, you know, the court of jurisdiction is finding him for 20 million? Why don't we find a way of making these people to return monies that they have taken out of the coffers of public offices? You just, you know, find them for a token out of everything that they might have taken. But these are still allegations, because as it stands before the law court, Godwin Emefiele is not standing any kind of trials for money laundering related issues as of now. You know, it's a case of, you know, having an ammunition without license. And you are now wondering why, you know, the full weight of the federal government, the DSS and the correctional facilities will be fighting on his head on that premise. Is this the much you know, weight of the law that should be released against him, you know, in that capacity? Is it really a function of the federal government versus Godwin Emefiele on that particular count charge? So it's the case is getting mumbled up, and nobody really knows, you know, why Emefiele is, you know, taking in. And this is it goes back to the beginning of the conversation when he was suspended. Is this some form of vendetta from the present day government, or is this witch hunting of some sort?
Well, a lot of persons believe Godwin Emefiele's case is more or less as a political witch hunting. We have to go back history land. Shortly or prior to the electioneering period, we saw Godwin Emefiele coming out to contest for presidency at some point after, you know, pictures of branded vehicles and all of that came surface on the internet. And then, of course, we saw the drama that unfolded when he also declared his intention to run for the #1 seat in Nigeria, the office of the presidency, under the platform of the APC. And then shortly after, you know, he failed, we saw the cash crunch policy that came into existence, which, of course, he said was to help prevent politicians from vote buying. And then we saw the drama. Of course, we know that the likes of the president was not in support of the cash crunch policy that saw Nigerians going through a lot of hardship, many of which are yet to even come out of it. We've seen businesses shut down. We've seen families move from being able to take care of their needs to not being able to, and practically, literally being, now having to beg for daily survival. So we know Nigerians pass through a lot as a result of some of the policies that Godwin Emefiele had done or had, you know, sat upon as the CBN governor. But then there are different concerns on the minds of Nigerians. First and foremost, if Godwin Emefiele is being tried for any related offenses to his tenure as the CBN governor, then the likes of the immediate past President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, should also be brought in for questioning, because Godwin Emefiele didn't take any of those decisions on his own by himself as a CBN governor. he had to report to somebody, and that person was the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at then. So if he's being tried, then all of his accomplices should also be tried in the same in the same vein. And then away from that, talking about which one thing, some persons have expressed sentiments that maybe President Ahmed Bola Tinubu cannot go after his predecessor, Muhammadu Buhari, regardless of what direction the case might be. And then on the fact of witch hunting of Emefiele, it can also be stated that maybe this is just a way of the present administration. Many believe it is a way of the present administration to punish him for maybe the challenges he put them through during the electioneering period. But if we have to go back to the words...
But wouldn't that be using the weight of the law, just within the whim and caprices of anyone who's heralding the system? Because at the end of the day, it means that, the law... First of all, the law is meant to be blind, but when we can now have people and forces stand behind the law and wield it to whatever direction the so please, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, if you think that, Godwin Emefiele has done things against the state of Nigeria, let him be tried accordingly to the laws, that be against some of those decisions that he made. But if this is vendetta of some sort, it rubbishes the whole goal of having a judicial system in place. It rubbishes the whole goal of, having checks and balances with what people can do in public offices or not. It just means that, once you are in governance and you do something that is not pleasing to me, once I get in, I can use, because I'm now the person at the helms of affairs, I can now use the powers that be against you. It still makes us backward as a nation.
Well, it makes us backward as a nation, yes, but let's not forget that some of these politicians don't really care how Nigerians' image is being painted home and abroad. Most of them don't really care what happens to Nigerians when we step outside the shores of Nigeria because of the things that is happening in Nigeria. And because they don't really care, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter the scenario playing out in Nigeria. Now, in actual sense, the likes of Barrister Inibe Effiong has said that the service of the DSS actually going after Godwin Emefiele is now making the DSS a political or a partisan tool in the hands of every occupant of Aso Rock. That is what he's alleging this morning. And he's also said that DSS recorded yet another point in its long list of infamy and impunity as far as the case between Godwin Emefiele and the federal government and the Federal High Court in Lagos is concerned, calling it a vindication of those who have said time and again that the so-called law enforcement agency is nothing but a political and partisan tool in the hands of every occupant of the Aso Rock. He describes this as a very disgusting thing, which of course will tarnish further the image of Nigeria. And now, if we put this side by side, there have been a lot of persons over time that have been, accused of different things. Why is the federal government not going after them? We've had scenarios of, different persons brandishing guns. Why are we not going after them? Why are we going after Godwin Emefiele with a crude gun? First, it started, like you rightly mentioned, with his suspension. And then we were told he's going to be tried for whatever happened under his leadership of the CBN, while we had the different challenges. And then Nigerians were told the essence of his suspension was for investigation, probing, and then, of course...
Exactly.
For trial to be done so that Nigerians can know what actually transpired. And shortly after that, the reform story was given to Nigerians. The whole narrative is changed. Okay, so after the reforming of the financial sector to make it better and better, the economy of Nigeria, all of those charges are no longer there, nowhere to be found. It is now firearms. So it clearly points to the fact that this is not just a case of fighting Emefiele on behalf of the Nigerian people, but somebody somewhere has a beef, a personal beef against Emefiele that is using the instrument of the state to perpetrate or some level of revenge, or to carry out some level of revenge on the person of Godwin Emefiele.
Let's not even forget the fact that most Nigerians would actually want to see Godwin Emefiele tried and probed for his leadership of the CBN in the past 78 years. People want him to answer questions with regards to some of the policies that he made, things that went wrong under his leadership. A lot of Nigerians will want to see that. But once you bring him in and you begin to topple with, the conversation and the narrative around his arrest, then I mean, at the end of the day, Francis, we are going back to the fact that Nigerians cannot trust the Nigerian system, because we say one thing and do the opposite every time, you know. So it's more like, yes, at the end of the day, you can come and do whatever is so pleased, and whoever comes after you can handle this however they so please. So this is not working as of now, and we must say it was really, really disgraceful to see the tussle that went on between the DSS and the correctional facility yesterday, until eventually, of course, the correctional facility gave way and the DSS took back Godwin Emefiele into custody. Of course, we'll wait today to hear whether he has paid the 20 million naira bill, and let's see if he's going to be released from the DSS custody, or if another narrative is going to be brought forward as to why he's going to be kept. But then let's move to the very next story this morning. We see that the National Committee says that they plan to prosecute and recover over $9 billion of monies from oil companies.
Well, as far as the oil companies are concerned and gas flaring is concerned, this has been like a recurrent decimal on the surface of Nigeria, where the Nigerian government would consistently say, we are dealing with, multinationals who are involved in gas flaring. A little bit at look at the statistics this morning. About $2.5 billion annually is being lost to gas flaring in Nigeria. Now, over time, we've had different administration, different national assemblies sit on and deliberate on matters bordering on gas flaring, but we've not really seen any policy statement that has been implemented to put an end to gas flaring. We saw Tajuddin Abbas, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, inaugurate an ad hoc committee to investigate alleged 9.05 billion revenue loss from gas flaring in the last decade in Nigeria. That's talking about 10 years of gas flaring. Now, we're not even talking about the dangers that gas flaring has brought to Nigerians. We're not even talking about the danger that it does to the environment. We're talking about a lot of changes in the ozone layer, a lot of changes as far as climate conditions is concerned. So if the National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly, is actually able to first and foremost probe and then recover this money, and then take a step forward, which of course is what Nigerians would want at this point, to ensure that gas flaring becomes a thing of the past, is put to an end, and then this gas is put to good use in the interest of Nigerians, then this will be a step that they forever will be commended in the history of time. But then, Nigerians are also saying, we've had different National Assemblies sit on this matter. We've had different deliberations. We've had different press statements from, different quarters, different leaders at some point, but we've never seen anything happening. What is the difference that the Tajuddin administration and that of Senate President Godswill Akpabio will actually be able to do something meaningful that Nigerians can look back in the next 1 year, in the next 4 years, in the next 10 years to say, yes, it was during the 10th National Assembly that the policy was not just made, but implemented. It was the 10th National Assembly that was able to put its feet down and say, these must stop. And it actually did stop. So we look forward to seeing those kinds of actions happening. It is not enough for the House of Assembly to come out and say we are going to prosecute. Now, let's not just forget, just yesterday or day before yesterday, the National Assembly said an end to burning of vessels with, laden with stolen crude oil. The officials of the Nigerian Navy came out to say we are not going to stop. What is the response coming from the National Assembly? Nothing so far. So if we have not had those very strong moves by the National Assembly, it therefore means this might just be another press statement, another media charade that is done maybe to coddle the favors of Nigerians.
Well, the House of Representatives has vowed to recover a whooping sum of over $9 billion gas flaring fines imposed by the federal government on airing local and foreign companies operating in the oil and gas companies industry. Of course, we saw the chairman of the ad hoc committee investigating gas flaring, Ahmed Munia, give the assurance in Abuja during the post-investigative hearing briefing, which was attended by various stakeholders drawn from Federal Ministry of Environment, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSTRA. And we also see that we have a worrying level of impunity being perpetrated by the operators. Honorable Muni vowed that the 10th Assembly will do within its powers to ensure the recovery of all unpaid levies as well as compliance with extant legislations and regulations. Now, another clause with this is the fact that when we are picketing some of these agencies, because when you say local and foreign, it also brings NNPC into the bucket. But then NNPC is also, picketing the federal government, saying, "Hey guys, you are owing us, to the tune of so amount of trillion." There was 1 point something trillion. There was about 3.9 trillion there as owed by the federal government to the NNPC. Now they're now saying, if you're asking us to bring the monies in from gas flaring and all of this, are you also willing to pay us the monies that you're owing us? Now that is just one agency. We are holistically looking at all companies, local and foreign, that are flaring gas within the country. And we've also continued, in recent times we are having more conversations of how Nigeria can even raise her gas consumption rate. Yes, we are doing fairly well, but we are not consuming as much gas as we should, and in this period where petrol has even come up, gas has become the alternative energy source at this time. And if we even put the gas that is being flared in the country to good use, you realize that we'll be realizing more energy alternative sources than we currently have. So this even goes back to all the waste that we have in the country, whether we are wasting in governance or we are wasting in crude. We need to have people that begin to think about how we can, what's the word? We do not have the culture of reusing natural resources. We do not know how to, there's the English word, it's evaporating from my head. Recycling energy, because we just flare the gas and now we want people to pay penalties for even flaring the gas. Why not come into collaborations and partnerships with these oil companies within our country and say, okay, this gas that you're flaring, let us rather recycle it into ABC for the use of CDE in the country, for instance. So this is a serious issue. But $9 billion is a great sum that will greatly help the country. But Francis, another big question will be that how realistic will it be for us to recover these monies from the companies that are involved? How come we have even waited for it to accumulate onto 9 billion naira? Why wasn't the legislation implemented and followed through year on year every time these things were happening in the country?
Well, it's a question that I think every Nigerian would already maybe make suggestive answers to them. First, why did we have to keep it to this point? It goes back to the poor attitude on the parts of our leaders at the National Assembly, at the presidential level. All the government is who are supposed to actually be the agent of government that is working behind the clock to ensure that federal government of Nigeria, the laws of our lands are actually being implemented. And let's not also forget the fact that there have also been allegations over time as to why multinationals keep flaring gas with almost disrespect and impunity to the livelihood of Nigerians, to the harm and dangers that is causing to the environment, and of course in its entirety the harm that is causing to the world in general. And that is also going down to the part of the questions of having kickbacks on the part of government officials, where people who are supposed to enforce and implement the laws, the extant laws, the provisions within the oil and gas sector will get kickbacks or allegedly get kickbacks from these multinationals, and then turn a blind eye to whatever illegal activities that they are doing, and whatever losses that brings to the federal government of Nigeria is nobody's problem as long as their own pockets are being filled. So those two are the first indices that Nigerians will look at. Those two are the first points of call that every person would literally look into. But then it still comes down again to another thing. Why have the multinationals themselves not have the moral compass to also do what is right? I mean, in our individual lives, people don't wait to be pushed around. People don't wait to be told what to do, to be reminded what is right for their well-being before they do it. So why do we now have to wait as a corporation to be pushed around, to be policed around, to be reminded every time of what needs to be done and should be done right
before we actually get to do it. There is absolutely no need for that. But then, when you look at the business environment and what people are sometimes, most times willing to do just to make extra profit, just to cut corners, just to ensure that they stay on top of the line, then you might be tempted to even excuse, these multinationals. But then it is something that demands everybody, all hands to be on deck, from the government to the provisions of laws or the putting in place of laws and policies, to ensuring that these laws and policies are actually implemented, and to ensuring that we have sincere, honest, patriotic government officials who take their responsibility as a service to the Nigerian people.
Well, the committee has said that they now have a PIA, and that will help them to be able to implement some of these injunctions that have been raised and legislations that have been put in place for the oil and gas sector. And they're also saying this is why they are stepping out to ask questions, from all those involved in this, in this sector. So let's see how this is interpreted into, more tangible things. Will the $9 billion actually be recovered? And, going forward, will we be able to implement the legislation that says you will pay a fine if you flare gas within our borders? But let's move on from that particular story. Part of our stories this morning is the fact that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said he's raising the health budget by 10%. Of course, this statement was given by his special advisor to the President on Health, Salma Ibrahim Anas, and he said the President plans to increase the annual budgetary allocation to the health sector by 10%. Of course, this is something we have been clamoring for in the country for the highest, for the longest of times. But 10% increments, how much does that bring us to, and what will be the impact of a 10% increase on the health budget in the country? Now, she said, she added that there is also the possibility of an additional increment if the allocation is managed judiciously. Ibrahim Anas spoke at the health summit organized by the Gatefield in Abuja. Now, of course, they continue to decry the low budgetary allocation to the sector, which she said presently stands at less than 5%. So assuring that the president was committed to financing the health sector. With all the realities that we have on ground, having our health sector running on a budget that is less than 5% is troubling. We consider a lot of things: infrastructural decay, we're looking at brain drain, we're looking at the fact that we do not have the up-to-date facilities and equipment to handle the health needs of Nigerians at this time. Less than 5% is troubling for an economy such as ours, who vote small percentage to certain areas of the government that should not be gaining as much financial input. But of course, she said the president himself, even before anybody advocated, has said he's going to increase allocations for health. Well, this is where this the crux of this particular issue lies.
Well, as far as health is concerned, over time in Nigeria, as far as budget is concerned as well, it was just the 2023 budget of the immediate past administration, President Muhammadu Buhari, that actually for the first time gave, or seemed to have given, a little bit of a raise to the normal budget. And for the first time, we saw 1.17 trillion naira allocated to the health sector out of the total figure. And that, of course, raised a lot of, commendations from the Nigerians and people within the health sector. But then over time, the argument has been that for Nigeria to be able to meet, the kind of investment, the kind of medical facilities and services that we require and we do deserve in the country, the budgetary allocation should have been up to about between 15 and 25%. And of course, over time, we've not seen it even increase up to 5%. And Nigerians, particularly people from the health sector, have been calling and advocating for relevant government agencies and institutions, of course, the presidents, over time, to prioritize the issue of health. Now, in the instant that we have, over getting close to having 15% of the total budget of Nigeria, and then, of course, the caveat in the question of whether or not we can actually utilize it effectively and efficiently would therefore mean that Nigerians will begin to look at how much exactly would the almost 10% of increment amount to within the course of the 4 years that Ahmed Bola Tinubu is going to be on the seats of power? That's question number one. In terms of utilizing this one, that the presidency has said, if it is being effectively utilized, we'll look at, bringing in a raise. Who are those who are going to be saddled with the responsibility of implementing these? Are we going to focus and follow through the nitty-gritties of what has been posited to be the normal, regular way of bidding for contracts and giving contracts within government quarters? If the answer is yes, then we might not see a lot of the funds going back to the real investing or doing the real investment in the medical health, medical sector, which of course would also be anti-people. But then, first and foremost, is a welcome development that Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has said, yes, we are going to look into, raising the bar as far as budgetary allocation to the health sector is concerned. We're going to invest. But of course, Nigerians would ask, when this investment is budgeted for, let's get to see real infrastructural development across the different geopolitical zones, across the different states. Let's get to see real infrastructural renaissance across tertiary hospitals, especially, teaching hospitals. Let's get to see investment into specialized hospitals. You're looking at cancer treatment. You're looking at maybe things that has to do with sickle cell, bone marrow transplant. You're looking at specialist hospitals established for specific kinds of ailment, where people can actually have a field day, take a trip there, and you know that, okay, the facilities are there, the personnel are there, the manpower is there, everything that anybody who has that kind of ailment needs to be taken care of has been made available. Those are the concerns Nigerians are having. So if we begin to have those kind of infrastructures, then we also focus some of this money into taking care of our manpower. You're looking at the doctors, you're looking at all the medical practitioners in the field, then definitely we might be able to see the transformation that Nigerians have been clamoring for. Let's not forget the fact that outside the shores of Nigeria, most of the top managerial positions, most of the significant achievement made in the medical profession have been attributed to Nigerian brains. So if we are able to prioritize health in our budgetary allocation, if we are able to be honest with it and not act and do business as usual, like we've done in other times and in other sectors, then with doctors' welfare and medical officials' welfare being sorted out, with proper investment and putting in place of infrastructure, with focus on training and retraining of a medical, experts and professionals, then definitely we will have a renewed medical system that Nigerians can have absolute confidence, absolute trust, and then of course that will mean medical tourism will have drastically been reduced, and the problem of brain drain also would have been addressed. But we'll take a short pause here, and of course we'll be going on a first break where Mary Joseph is standing by for the news, and of course when we do come back, we'll continue with the rest of Rise and Shine. Just stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect
every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m.
on Channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories on how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
As of state and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover 45 seats in Plateau County.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum. Live from Uyo, I am Mary Joseph. We begin the news brief from the financial sector, where the Monetary Policy Committee (MPC) of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN) has voted to increase the benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 18.75%. The acting CBN Governor Folushodun Shonubi disclosed this while reading the communique of the 4th MPC meeting of the year. Also, while addressing journalists at the end of the two-day meeting in Abuja, Shonubi said the committee voted to adjust the asymmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 300 basis points around the MPR. Away from that, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has screened and confirmed 24 commissioners and special advisor nominees from the state governor, Pastor Moina. The Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has screened and confirmed the 24 commissioners and special advisor nominees sent to it by the Akwa Ibom State Governor, Pastor Moina, and by the implication given it go-ahead for the selected individuals to be assigned portfolios by the governor and ushered into the State Executive Council of the new administration. Their confirmation followed the motion moved by the Deputy Leader of the House, Otobong Bob, representing Isidubium State Constituency, and the duly seconded for the adoption of the report of the House Committee on Judiciary, Justice, Human Rights and Public Petitions after their individual screening on the floor of the House. Meanwhile, the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has declared a total and indefinite strike action. The association revealed this in a statement made available to newsmen. The resident doctors listed their demands to include the immediate payment of the 2023 MRTF, the immediate release of the circular on 141 replacement, and the payment of the skipping arrears. The list also noted the upward review of the commies in line with the full salary restoration of the 2014 value and CONMES, the payment of the arrears of consequential adjustment of the minimum to the omitted doctors, and the reversal of the downgrading of the membership certificate by the MDCN, amongst others. Heading straight now to the foreign scene, the United States announced a new $400 million military assistance package for Ukraine, featuring ammunition for artillery and air defense systems. The announcement comes as Ukrainian troops press ahead with a slow-moving counter-offensive against invading Russian forces. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the assistance is aimed at strengthening Ukraine's brave forces on the battlefield and helping them retake Ukraine's sovereign territory. And finally, in sports, Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen is expected to earn £50 million if he makes the move to French giant Paris Saint-Germain in their transfer window. Napoli owners Aurelio De Laurentiis expects to receive $1 million offer from the player and has credited PSG as the only club that can afford the Nigerian international. Other top clubs like Real Madrid, Manchester United and Bayern Munich have pulled out for negotiations for Osimhen due to De Laurentiis' high asking price. We'll have details of this and more in our news at 12. I am Mary Joseph. Let's step back to Rise and Shine, where we have Francis and Uyai on standby. To have a wonderful morning.
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
Voting for Spectrum TV to recover 45 seats in Plateau County.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect
every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on StarTimes
to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my Lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Mary Joseph just brought us tidbits of global news on the News Brief desk. And before we went there, we looked at certain national issues all around the country. Yesterday was a beehive of activities at a certain court in Lagos State, where we saw the DSS and the correctional facility men tussle over who should be in custody of the suspended CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele. Of course, he was granted a 20 million naira bail from the Court of Jurisdiction on certain allegations and count charges brought against him by the federal government. But that continues to be a tussle. At the end of the day, DSS seemed to have won the tussle after the correctional facility lay low and he was taken back into custody by the DSS. Another story we looked at this morning is the fact that the House of Reps have vowed to recover $9 billion gas flaring fine from local and foreign gas and oil and gas companies in Nigeria. Let's see how much that, can bring back to the country's financial treasury, and whether we can move forward beyond coming back to take fines and implementing the legislation around gas flaring in the country. Another story that we saw this morning that sounds like a ray of hope for the health sector is the fact that the president has said that the budget for the health sector will be increased by 10%. Of course, if this is done, this will help the country's health sector to a very large extent. Currently, it is said that the budgetary percentage for the health sector in Nigeria is less than 5%. If we see it upped by another 10, it will have an impact. Well, how much of an impact will this have on the health sector? These are some of the stories that we have talked about so far on Rise and Shine. To catch up on all that, you need to be following us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. But this is one story we need to take just before we get to our newspaper review this morning. Of course, we see the energy coming out of the Traditional Rulers Council out of the 36 states of the Federation. They are now asking that they take their place in and continue to play their role in governance in Nigeria. Of course, traditional rulers in time past played a very vital role in the country until a lot of things changed in the country. But now they are asking through the office of the Senate President that they be re-recognized and given their place to play their role in the country. Let's give voice to this particular video and get right back into the conversation.
And all the requests that you have made before us is not strange. It's something that if we had the opportunity to visit all of you whilst we were struggling to take over the leadership of the Senate, we probably would have made it as one of the manifestos. And we would have made it as one of the manifestos and said, please, we want royal blessing. But before you give us the royal blessing, we promise you that we will definitely do everything possible to work with the House of Representatives and all our colleagues to create a rule in our constitution for the traditional rulers in Nigeria.
We urge you to please look into this aspect of our role in the national Nigerian constitution, including the traditional constitution. Give us roles to support, to advise, to mobilize all the policies, all the people we have, support the policies, promote the programs, and then let our people feel sense of belonging.
The request that you have.
Of course, we've seen the Senate President promise the traditional rulers of their constitutional role in governance. Of course, it says this will be effected through the Constitution Amendment. So we're going to begin to see the Godswill Akpabio-led Senate also begin to amend the Constitution to take in certain factors into cognizance. Of course, this was said on at a meeting which was held with the royal fathers across the 36 states of the Federation and the Capital Territory. it's important that we begin to see and hear the place of a traditional ruler, because the most of what we now call modern day democracy are things that these men custodied as traditional rulers, and Nigeria seems to have had some sanity on the traditional rulers for the longest time before we began to transition from colonialism to democracy and all of that. So if we can get their constitutional input to democracy and rulership in the country, I think it will bring some stability back into a system of governance. Hopefully they do not also play to the impact of being in governance and whatever spirit walks around in the political sphere.
Well, as far as traditional rulers are concerned, remember during the just concluded constitutional alteration that was conducted during the time of the 9th Assembly, and of course the era of former President Muhammadu Buhari, we saw the agitations that came from the sides of Nigerians, where Nigerians and of course the traditional rulers themselves were calling for their role to be institutionalized and of course enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is a call that was made in the right direction. Now, we need to go back to the fact that the question of security, the question of keeping communities in check, the question of knowing what is really happening at the grassroots cannot be actualized without the role of traditional institution leaders. You're talking about the village, from we have to break down from the family heads to the clan heads to the village head to the traditional head of the village, and then you move from there to the paramount ruler. Then you get to the state level where you have the gathering of all the paramount rulers, and then you get to the federal level where you have the respective paramount rulers or the heads of the traditional institutions across the 36 states of the federation and the FCT. This is one of the most longest or the longest standing institution that had been used over time to address issues in Nigeria. Now, if we look at the successes that were achieved during that time and place that with now, you see that a whole lot of needed a traditional father to make a pronouncement, councillors or chairman. But if their role is institutionalized, like we have in other parts of Nigeria, like you go to the northerns, their role, traditional rulers are well accorded their respect and their due. So if we have that going down through the Federal Republic of Nigeria across the different states that has been enshrined, then we'll have a better structure, and then of course that will create a better synergy for all of us to work with, and then we'll address a whole lot of issues that have been bothering Nigerians.
Of course, speaking on behalf of this royal fathers, Esu of Nupe, Dr. Yahaya Abubakar, had explained that the constitutional role of traditional rulers was expunged by the framers of the 1979 Constitution. So if we take this back to what the Senate President had said earlier, where he said, to fix this, the Constitution will need to be amended. So we're going to have to be going all the way back to the Constitution of 1979. How did the traditional rulers become sidelined? How did their roles become expunged from the Constitution of Nigeria? Because like the Senate President has also rightly said, stability with regards to security in the country is greatly achievable if we have our traditional rulers' hands on deck. Like you rightly quoted, how did we stay secure and safe in our environments when we had them at the helms of affairs? It means there is a system of governance and rulership that they understand, that maybe politicking is missing somewhere. So we do hope that in the course of the 10th NAS, we are going to see how this particular constitution is amended in favor of having our traditional rulers, play their constitutional role to the development of, the Nigerian state. But this is, a very good step in the right direction, and we do hope that this culminates into a lot of good for us in terms of governance in the country. But that's where we're going to rest our stories for this morning, and we're going to take a quick swipe at Daily Spotlight, where we bring you information from the front pages of a national daily. Stay with us.
Well, Well, welcome. This is time for us to take you around the world as far as national dailies is concerned. And today on the national dailies, Spotlight will be starting with Vanguard newspaper this morning. And on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, the kicker there says DSS main prisons officials in free-for-all over Emefiele. DSS main prisons officials in free-for-all over Emefiele. And the riders have court grants Emefiele 20 million naira bail. DSS rearrest team. Prisons arms squad commander manhandled. Uniform Tom. And of course, Falana orders react. DSS versus MPS scuffle over Emefiele. Unmitigated shame. And of course, the Huriwa respect court order on Emefiele. And of course, we have Norton Forum tell DSS. Okay, those are that's the reactions coming from the Emefiele story with the scuffle that happened yesterday. Still on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, you'd find CBN intensifies anti-inflation efforts, raises MPR to 18.75%. You can find that on page 19 and page 5 respectively. Drama's FCC commissioner accuses chairman of employment racketeering. That's on page 9. Federal government as suit court affirms Konwa NAMDA registration as trade union. That's on page 20. Tinubu to send ministerial list to us in 48 hours, Senate. That's on page 3 of the Vanguard newspaper. Of course, National Assembly moves against electricity tariff hike, estimated billing. That's on page number 3 of the Vanguard newspaper. The front page of the Vanguard there is filled with picture story, all bordering on the drama that unfolded at the Lagos prison. Lagos, court yesterday. We saw the picture story of the prison official being manhandled by the officials of the DSS, and of course also the embattled CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele being manhandled also there. And then we have the Lagos State government hosting the X3M. Those are the major stories you could find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
All right, moving on from the Vanguard this morning, let's look at the Punch. Big story on the Punch this morning says Nigerians demand reforms as Tinubu submits ministerial list. Technocrats set to dominate list. Tinubu sought prayers to make right choice, says Senate leader. NBA task appointees on security. APC elders fume over Jonathan's move to pick Bielsa candidate. We also see here Emefiele lawyers condemn DSS and warders clash as family protest re-arrest. We also see here CBN vows to tackle forex pressure, raises lending rate. Discourse to return $1.2 billion for 374 projects, says NDPHC. Page 9 is where you can find details of that particular story. We also see here threats to Kogi Bielsa Imo polls disturbing, says INEC. That's a new twist that is already rising, and I do hope we pay keen attention. Okay, we also have here resident doctors begin indefinite strike today. Page 12. There's been a lot of negotiations, but it looks like none has sufficed. Lagos Okada riders accuse policemen of extortion. Page 4 is where we can find details of that story. And the very last story here on the front page of the Punch this morning says Adamu Omishore met Tinubu for reconciliation. APC chieftains. Details can be found on page 12, and that's all on the front page of the Punch.
Well, our next story is the Nigerian Tribune, and on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, the kicker there says Emefiele knocks for DSS prison officials of Akotho for custody. Judge grants 20 million naira bail, DSS rearrest team, and that's a part of the rider there. And of course, another one says Falana Ogunye Ezekwesili Sowore orders react to the scuffle. And of course, the entirety of the case in court. That's on page number 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. Still on the front page this morning, halt proposed electricity hike. Senate tells federal government frowns on estimated billing. That's on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune. ASU loses as court affirms Konwe NAMDA as trade unions. That's on page 8. I have no grudge against Olubadan Ladoja. That's on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune. Of course, still there, flooding Oyan Dam being closely monitored. NEMA. That's on page 11 of the Nigerian Tribune. And to wrap up the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, extortion increasing along Lagos Port access roads. NPA raises alarm. And protest in Ire Polytechnic over removal of rector. And angry senators push Oshomole to apologize over looting allegation. Those are on page 7, page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Okay, let's look at Daily Times. Daily Times says, despite bail, ex-CBN Governor Emefiele rearrested by DSS. This is what we're talking about this morning. Where does this really lead us when we're still having a back and forth, having been granted bail? Okay, we also see here federal government earmarked $500 million to transform food system. CBN raises benchmark interest rates to 18.75%. Page 9 is where you can find details of that particular story. Lawyer alleges Ogun SSG's multi-million naira deals, petitions, EFCC, ICPC. Okay, last story here says huge row in Senate over Oshimole's looting interview. That story can be found on page 2. And that's all we have on the front page of the Daily Times.
Well, of course, next up this morning, we're heading out to the front page of the Punch, not Punch, the Nation newspaper, rather. And, of course, on the front page of the Nation this morning, the kicker there says, ministers, Tinubu Moles, senior advocate of Nigeria, ex-governors, technocrats, orders, Senate leader, president list ready tomorrow. That's on page number 29 of the Nation newspaper. Going still on the front page, you have Atiku, PDP confused, president tells tribunal. That's on page number 28 of the Nation newspaper. NERC, this goes fine-tune tariffs hike plan. And of course, senators, reps oppose move. That's on page 29 of the Nation newspaper. Federal government will redirect $800 million palliatives cash. That's on page number 29, and ASA loses bid to stop Konwe's registration. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And of course, still on the front page of the Nation, Emefiele rearrested in court after interagency brawl. That's on page 29 of the Nation newspaper. Southeast battles erosion. Ladoja pledges loyalty to Olubadan in council. Those are the major stories you can find on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
Okay, let's take our very last paper for this morning, and that will be Daily Trust. Daily Trust this morning. And the big story there says, Emefiele rearrested over terrorism as CSO's lawyers slam DSS. Now, this is the very laughable thing we're talking about this morning, Francis. How does he move from every other thing to becoming a terrorist overnight? Well, we do not know what they know, but we do hope that they put their story straight with regards to this particular case. Stop disgracing us in front of the, what do we call, community of states. Well, let's move on from there. Secret police, prison officers fired over custody. It's a sad day, clash unfortunate. Ex-CBN governor granted 20 million naira bail. We also have here, petrol price hike, no plan to reduce work days, says federal government. Woo! CBN increases interest rate to 18.75%, highest in 22 years. Details are on page 19. We also see here Tinubu meets Ulster APC chair Adamu and secretary. Page 10 is where you can find details of that. 48 hours to deadline. Tinubu yet to send ministerial list to Senate. List will reach us within 2 days, says Senate leader. Will beat deadline, says presidency. Page 16 is where we can find details. And that's all we have. And I think Daily Trust gave me a laugh this morning. I'll just piggyback on the stories on Daily Trust this morning. Two things stand out. When the federal government says that they are not planning to reduce working hours and working days for workers as a result of petrol hike, I want to laugh first of all. We have not also seen the federal government put out ways to mitigate the sufferings that Nigerians have been going through. All we've had so far is promises. It is state governments that are even saying from July you're going to get an extra 10,000, maybe as a transportation stipend. Or we've even seen some corporations say, okay, we're going to reduce working hours to 3 days a week to mitigate. But the federal government is saying they are not even considering it. Who is doing this to Nigerians?
Who is doing this to Nigerians? Nigerians are doing it to themselves. I mean, we voted in President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as they say, and we should have known better.
And we are also still fighting to sustain that mandate.
Yeah, so we're fighting. Some persons are very passionate about the fight. There have been a lot of persons who have even said, I mean, why should Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi be heading to court? Election has been over and done with. We have a president, so let's all focus and build Nigeria. And of course, everybody took that decision shortly after Ahmed Bola Tinubu took over and then declared fuel subsidy removal. It's something that he fought against some years back, when the then President Jonathan was at the helms of affairs. And now he comes in as the president and removes it, and we get to applaud him for it. And then, of course, the different, policy statement that he's made so far, some we can actually do commend him for them. I mean, look at the deregulation in the electricity sector, in as much as we know that the National Assembly is going back and forth with DISCO and the Nigerian Electricity Distribution Company in Nigeria, and of course the regulatory authorities of the electricity subsector. We do hope to see this bickering gets past just bickering between the National Assembly and the respected firms and organizations, because if the National Assembly is saying we are not in support of estimated billing, we are not going to grant you access to hike electricity fare or bills, then the DISCOs on the other hand are saying we are going to go ahead. Who has the ultimate power in this country? That's a very big question we need to answer.
And that power actually is supposed to be Nigerians.
So who has the ultimate power? Is it the Nigerian people? Is it the National Assembly, or the people doing business in Nigeria? We need to get to know who has the power. And then between the National Assembly and the people who have been employed to work for the federal government, who has the biggest power? I mean, if a naval officer can actually have the boldness to speak against a declaration by the House of Assembly, it goes a long way to say
who exactly is leading
is in charge. So
exactly.
it means we probably don't have people in charge of this country. So it's to your tent, O Israel. If you feel you have some power, you have some muzzle, you can wake up and do whatever you want. And it's about time we put an end to it.
I think there's also another side to the federal government saying they're not going to reduce working days, because usually we've had this conversation of when we observe incessant public holidays, and some business experts are saying it's getting in the way of productivity as a country. So are we also looking at it from that lens? If the federal government is saying we are not going to reduce working days as a result of this, the impact of subsidy removal, are we also looking at the fact that they are trying not to reduce productivity on the end of working Nigerians? Is that a viable argument? But then if not, yes, we need to keep up with productivity because of the realities on ground, but then a way must be made to mitigate or at least cushion the effects of the subsidy removal. The federal government cannot just say we will not reduce the working days and that's all we hear. All the promises about palliatives and making possible review of minimum wage and all that, we need to effectively see certain implementation so that it is not the state of Nigeria versus Nigerians. But this one also is quite troubling. We've crossed our fingers so hard in the last couple of weeks until they've become sore. Now we are left with just 48 hours to the deadline for the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to release his ministerial list. Of course, in the past weeks there have been several speculations, and even the presidency had come out to say, Nigerians, calm down, when we are ready, we're going to release this list. Now it is the Senate leader that is telling us that by tomorrow, being Thursday, the 4th business day, that the list will be sent to the Senate Senate, and before deadline elapses, we will know who has been chosen. But it will go to also show us, is there something we are trying to protect by releasing the ministerial list in the wee hours of the deadline?
Well, as far as Nigeria is concerned, as far as the processes within the ranks and file of government is concerned, it doesn't really matter at this point what Nigerian thinks or what Nigerians feel or what we want as Nigerians. The provisions of the laws are there. 60 days is the deadline. We get to wait to see what the list will be made up of and how the National Assembly, the Senate, and the House of Rep will react to the different nominees that has been sent to the National Assembly for ratification, of course, confirmation for the respective positions that they will be saddled with. What Nigerians mostly want at this point is for the list to be out, for the screening and everything that needs to be done. Let's get to know who is responsible for who or for what, and then get to know who to begin to hold accountable. Let government kickstart in earnest. That's what Nigerians want at this one. But particularly on the issue of palliative, Nigerians are tired. On the front page of the Nation newspaper, we're told federal government will redirect the $800 million palliative cash. Redirect. We've not been told where it will be redirected to, what it will be used for, how it will be redirected. We've not been told. Recall just last week, the federal government came to say, okay, we are going to review the paltry 8,000 naira, palliative that was meant to be sent to 12 million households with an imaginary over 60 million households going to benefit from it. I'm still finding that very hard to believe. I don't know how many Nigerians will get to grapple with that. But then also they came out to say they're going to review, and we had reactions from Nigerians, technocrats, well-patriotic Nigerians. We had the likes of Akiten Yaitu and Desiree in Lagos State also writing to President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, calling for the review to be something that will actually be a genuine palliative offer to Nigerians to cushion the effect. And now the federal government is coming out to say it will be redirected. The big question is where, how, and what will this redirection be like?
Big questions, big issues, but this is Nigeria, and we've been here this morning talking Nigeria. These are some of the issues that have been sponged out on the front pages of our national dailies today. You would do well to pick up a copy and get abreast with the issues of national importance this morning. Of course, some of them have trailed across Emefiele. We're also seeing fuel subsidy removal as the major issues, and also we are expecting the ministerial list. We hear that list is going to be is going to have a lot of ex-governors and other technocrats. But Francis, what are your thoughts when we have a lot of, for instance, it actually comes out and we do have a lot of ex-governors on that list? What would be your feeling about that? Because we also have to look at how effective were these ex-governors in their states? What were their achievements that we are now giving them ministerial positions? Are we moving forward as a country, or we're moving backward in how we do some of these appointments?
Well, Ahmed Bola Tinubu has said he's been prepared. For the first time, Nigerians are beginning to doubt if he actually had been prepared all this while. I mean, for somebody who had been prepared, the ministerial list should have been over and done with a long time ago.
No, but one could argue that he was taking his time to screen. I mean, the Senate president has said he even prayed about, the people.
Prayers is necessary. Prayer is important, but is this the time to pray? It's like a driver. You wake up in the morning in your house and you don't get on your knees to pray. You get to the park, your car is parked empty. You are not praying at that point. And then everybody's inside the vehicle, ready to go. You now come inside the vehicle, and that is the time you begin to start praying. That's not the right time. So President Tinubu praying at this point in time is misplaced priority. That is something he should have done while preparing to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is something he should have done when he took the leave of Nigeria to be in France and then travel around the world.
One thing we know for sure is that when this list is released, the president is going to have, the president and or the presidency is going to have an explanation as to why, the list was delayed up to this point. Well, at this point, I nearly said something that Nigerians might come for me, but a fraction of Nigerians agreed to have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So this is the president that we have right now in our country, and we are going to, put our best hands on deck and see how we move forward as a country. But this is where we are going to let the newspapers rest this morning. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to try to see certain other conversations still of national importance, things that are biting hard. We're still looking at policy reforms. What can we do differently to move our country forward? To stay with us. When we return, Rise and Shine continues.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
On Monday, 29th May this year, President Bola Tinubu in his inaugural speech said Nigeria's fuel subsidy will be scrapped. This announcement marked the end of almost 50 years of subsidy dating from the 1970s. On June 12 this year, the president called the removal of fuel subsidy a necessary sacrifice and promised that the government will repay Nigerians through massive investment in transportation, infrastructure, education, regular power supply, health care, and other public utilities.
The fresh subsidy is gone. I have asked you, my compatriots, to sacrifice a little more for the survival of our country.
On 12 July this year, the president requested the passage of the 500 billion naira from the supplementary budget for subsidy palliatives, and the House of Representatives granted speedy approval on 14th July. They amended the 2023 Supplementary Appropriations Act to accommodate the president's request. Remember, a fuel subsidy is a measure taken by the government to lower the price of gasoline or diesel for the general public. It entails offering monetary aid or incentives to make up for prices of fuel products such as gasoline, diesel, or LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. The Collins Advanced Learners Dictionary says, palliative is an action that is intended to make the effect of a problem less severe, but does not actually solve the problem. In light of this, President Bola Tinubu has revealed that his administration will share 8,000 naira each to 12 million vulnerable households to cushion the negative effect of the federal government's recent removal of fuel subsidy. The 500 billion naira will be given as palliatives in form of conditional cash transfers directly to the bank accounts of the 12 million households. Spectrum Television took to the street to interact with citizens on the effect of the palliative on poor and vulnerable citizens. Recently, the President, Bola Tinubu, wrote to the House of Representatives to approve a 500 billion naira loan to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal. This is what some persons refer to as subsidy palliative. Well, we are in the streets of Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital, to find out from citizens how this subsidy palliative will affect them. Will it reach out to the poorest poor? Will it be good for a common man? What are the effects?
I'm not in support of the opinion that they should give out palliative, because the reason is that when they bring palliative into Nigeria, it does not circulate into different homes. Just few people benefited from it. Then another thing, in this current situation that we are now in this country, I don't see the need. We don't see the need in this country for us to say let the government give out palliative.
The government, in my own opinion, don't really say the people's mind. They say their mind. Just wake up one day and make one drastic decision like that. Okay, imagine when Buhari came into power, he said he's going to make things cheap, do this, do that, giving false promises to the media and the people, confusing them. They don't even lead the people to a very good place, and likely telling the people they will change the money to coin. But now we are still using the same naira note, and now they are telling us that they are getting 5 billion. This 5 billion, where and where are they taking them to? Who and where? Which point is this money being circulated to, so that it will help the people? The people really need help. I don't know for them. At times they used to make me feel Nigeria is not my country. I made a mistake coming, because they say what they don't want to do, and they keep promising, knowing that the people will support them, and after supporting them, they do another thing entirely. They don't stick to the people. And I really think that without 5 billion of a thing, if it so pleases him, because to me, I don't think that money will make any difference. The only thing is that we've heard they are getting 5 billion, but in the end of it, you hear this 5 billion has been squandered. Another money will be requested.
You know, anything in Nigeria is all about politics. So, channeling the money to palliative, some poor homes will not be the beneficiary of those palliatives. So, I think we should channel the money and repair our refinery so that at least everyone will benefit here in Nigeria.
Ever since I was born in this Nigeria as a country, I've never heard anything like palliative that has gotten to a common man. Me, I've never benefited from palliative. Even the lowest as the corona palliative, I did not see. How much more this fuel subsidy palliative that they want to do?
My problem is they should solve this problem because it affects everybody. Fuel now is 500 and something, and then it affects workers. They don't increase their salary, but they are increasing fuel. How would they pay to work, pay their fee, transport to work? And now a single drop is 100 naira. Some places are 200. And so to and fro is difficult. So I am begging them, either they can do something to fix it, not for them to put money in any palliative that will not benefit the masses. Few people will chop the palliative, because last one I did not even see it, talk less of eating it.
I believe it's not a step in the right direction because right from the onset, the government have not been spending their money wisely. The money should have been taken for maybe for the vulnerables, for people that are not good, don't have physical cash. Also, they should have constituted a program such as the End Power and the other program that could have helped and cushioned the effect of the fuel subsidy. But this palliative is just a thing of the bourgeoisie class, the rich class, and taking the money for themselves.
Welcome back. This is still Rise and Shine. Of course, Nigerians right there expressing their concerns with regards to the effects of the subsidy removal and sharing their thoughts and 2 cents about the whole issue of sharing palliative to 12 million vulnerable Nigerians. Like you heard some of them ask, in time past, the money's never got to them. What is the guarantee that it will at this time? Of course, the whole palliative conversation and fuel price hike, subsidy removal, that conversation is not going away anytime soon, as Nigerians are still in the middle of grappling with the effect. But this morning we are being joined virtually by Barrister Clifford Thomas, who is the chairman of Civil Society Organizations, Akwa Ibom State Chapter. We are going to be looking at certain issues in, a very quick streak. We had the 10th House of Representatives release its 6-point legislative agenda for the 10th Assembly. And we'll just break down some of these things that they have enunciated. And we are going to also be x-raying their capacity and willingness to get these things done for us. We also have a conversation around electricity price tariff hike. And the Civil Society and Consumers Association in Akwa Ibom had a meeting last week to have this conversation. We'd like to know what exactly was discussed at that meeting, and Barrister Clifford will be doing justice to this conversation. Good morning, Barrister Clifford. Good to have you on the show this morning.
Well, good morning, Nuya. Good morning, Spectrum. Good morning, viewers.
Yes,
we are very happy to be on set this morning.
Yes, we do hope that you're doing great.
Let me quickly say that I am the chairman, I'm the coordinator of Akwa Ibom Human Rights Community.
Yeah.
Not of the entire civil society. We are specifically human rights. And virtually everything we do or the engagement we are into are human rights, including the electricity thing we are talking about.
Yeah.
So last week, we had the Akwa Ibom Electricity Consumers Forum, the meeting, which was very, very successful. And we came out with resolutions, with a communique. And we're happy to inform the entire viewers that the Senate yesterday adopted part of our recommendations and condemned and as it were, the consumers. So we are very happy with that information, and we'll keep agitating.
Oh,
hello.
Yes, okay, we can hear you right now. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Yes, like I was saying, Nigerians must rise up. We must wake up to say no to government. But then we encourage the government at the federal, state, and local government level to come out with very good policies that will help the local government, the states, and the federal government. That's what we're looking for. We are trying to help the government to align with Chapter 2 of the Constitution, which says that the primary purpose of government is to work for this, provide security and welfare for the people. We are asking for security and welfare for our people. We have over 90% of Nigeria's population as unemployed or underemployed. And it is from this large army of the unemployed that people recruit from for criminal purposes. And when the government begins to say that they want to carry out palliative for 12 million households that are probably non-existent in their mind, they might just look at just 500,000 or 1 million households and bring out information that they have fed. We are saying no to that palliative move. The federal government should not give the national.
Okay, we do hope that this network will not mess around with us this morning.
70 billion.
Okay, Barrister Clifford, I'd like to ask, at the consumers meeting for electricity tariff hike and the likes, what exactly was the bone of contention? What was the basic issue that, consumers were raising, or for, the human rights organization to be able to tender before, the requisite authorities? Like you said, some of your suggestions have been taken up by the Senate, but what exactly did the consumers group bring to your table, and how, what were the suggestions that you made thereon?
Well, the major bone of contention was, number one, overbilling. Number two, non-provision of adequate non-provision of electricity in some instances, in some areas. And then they come with crazy bills. They call, they just come with crazy bill. This funny bill they come with. And some persons, you won't believe, someone came and complained that they billed him 329 or so thousand naira per month. And his bills have risen up to over 2 million naira. And the other man came, he was, he's a pensioner who earns 20,000 a month, but his bill is 63,000 naira a month. And this man lives in a 4-room apartment, which is uncompleted, and there is virtually no light most of the times. And there are a litany of complaints. So overbilling, non-provision of electricity, when non-supply or replacement of transformers or electricity consumables when they go bad, and you still come to force people to pay so much bills. And we are saying no to it. And in the Bill of Rights, it says that when you are overbilled and you now discover you've been overbilled and you challenge that bill, you contest the bill, you are not supposed to pay that bill. So we are telling people, consumers, if you challenge a bill in writing, don't pay the bill. No matter how they persuade you to pay whatever you have, don't pay. Let them cut the light. They will pay. We'll go to court against them. Now, we have a very successful litigation which came out. Barrister Francis Ekwere took the PhD to court and won. And they came to give him prepaid meter. They installed it, they brought it from Port Harcourt and installed free for him. And then they also paid him 250,000 naira for the overbilling that they overbilled him over the years.
But this is something that most Nigerians... This is something that most Nigerians don't know. They don't know that they can actually take PhD to court and then proceed.
The discourse can be challenged.
Mm.
The discos can be challenged. They are private limited liability companies, which means they are out to make profit. I want to say very categorically and authoritatively, every consumable from transformer to the power cables that are used to transmit electricity are either supplied by the Akwa Ibom state government or the consumers or communities. The PHED has not replaced any, and yet it has the temerity to come out to say they want to collect bills. And for the prepaid meter, the best thing here is that consumers should be metered. We should have prepaid meter. Now, the postpaid meter, the one you call analog meter, is still working, but they refuse to read it. It reads per kilowatt, and a kilowatt has a certain price of money. But they know that they won't have a way of exploiting or defrauding the people. That's why they refuse to read it.
But
So
exactly there's a lot of irregularities.
If you can.
There's a lot of irregularities surrounding that whole meter thing. Now, some quarters say you are supposed to pay to get the meters. Others are saying no. PHED is supposed to just come around and install it in people's homes. But we see that getting that whole, new meter system is a whole hustle that people cannot even, get off the way. Most times it's more like if you have someone in the system, then you are going to have the new meter put in your house. But I know, having this conversation, how have you been able to break that down? Barrister Clifford, are you on the line?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I'm talking about the interference with getting the new metering system.
Now, there are irregularities concerning this thing. The former governor of Akwa Ibom State set up what was called a metering solution company, where they got parts from outside the country and assembled in Nigeria. And that was supposed to have been what they would supply, but it was a private arrangement. A limited liability company went in to produce, and then they are selling. We have a leeway now to them that they can supply and install your prepaid meter.
This is it. Okay, please take your last trend of thought.
72 hours.
We lost what you said. We lost your last trend of thought in like last 50 seconds.
Okay, I want Nigerians to ask questions. Always ask questions. When they claim a point, please ask questions. We are ready to help you very correctly, and we are ready to go to court if it comes to our going to court for you.
Okay, this is what we are going to do. There's some other parts of our conversations we can't take this morning, but I'm glad that we handled the issue around electricity tariff hike, because it covers and touches most Nigerians at this time. Most people cannot afford fuel for their generators, and we still do not also have power supply across the country in most parts. So this conversation is great that we could have this, but we could do this, Barrister Clifford. We could have you tomorrow to have the conversation around the plans by the 10th House of Representatives and their plans for the country. Would that be fine for Nigerians?
I would have been back by then.
All right, awesome, sir. So thank you very much for your quick time this morning. We do hope to have you tomorrow. Let's have this conversation deeper and more expanded.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Well, we do apologize for the brevity of that conversation, a lot of constraints in the way, but the most important thing that we have learned this morning is the fact that Discos and PHED, every other sector involved with giving us power supply in the country, can be sued if they breach, their lines of service to us as Nigerians. So do not just take the things that they do against you hook, line and sinker. There are civil society organizations and human rights groups such as the ones led by Barrister Clifford Thomas in Akwa Ibom State. You would like to take hold of these opportunities and make sure that you get the worthy services that you should be getting from the government at this time. But that's where we're going to draw it tweets on Rise and Shine this morning. It's been a long ride with myself and Francis this morning, looking at issues of national importance. Please do catch up on the rest of the conversation, following us across all social media platforms, all of which you can find at spectrumtv.ng. Thank you for choosing Spectrum Television. Thank you for being a part of Rise and Shine. My name is Uyai Anek, and let's do this again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of our programs.